Hello! Today I'm making some sausage. Glad to see you've joined me just to learn how. We'll walk you through step by step. First step obviously is collect up some of your meat. In this case I've got bear. No, I didn't harvest it, but I was lucky enough that it was given to me. So, as you see, I'm just cutting it off the bone. Once it's off the bone, you'll take all of the silver skin away. Because it's bear, make sure you trim off as much meat as you can, or as much meat, well, you want the meat too, as much fat as you can, because the bear fat will actually go rancid in your freezer, and it'll ruin a perfectly good piece of meat. So, as I'm going to sit here and take out the bone and get it all ready, you don't need to be watching that. But I did forget to tell you, the recipe we're using today is I'm just trying to think. It's a savory bear sausage. Requires 10 pounds of bear. We'll actually put the link up, or the page up with the recipe for you. So, you don't need to see me boning and the meat. Once I'm all done, we'll get back to you and then we'll go step 2. That all done. Like I said, next step is grinding. I typically grind and then add my spices, mix it up, and then grind it a second time before running it into the casing. So, you guys aren't going to be able to hear me over the grinder, but don't worry about that. If you don't have a grinder, you can always chop really, really fine, and that'll do the same thing. It's just the grinder does it faster and less labor intensive, gives you a consistent product. So that's why I do this. Alright. First grind is done. As I said, now comes the part where you measure out all your spices and add them in, pre-measured. We add them in. Bear meat is very fatty, but you trim it off. If you don't want dry sausages, you add a little bit of a fat back, whether that's you can use a smoked bacon, you can use a fatty pork roast, or in this case, I prefer beef suet. It doesn't add a whole lot of extra flavor. I'm only going to add about half. Then I'm going to mix it all up. You just want to give it a good, so as you mix it up, it looks like you've got a good mix in there. The last thing you want is a dry sausage, because they're dry. What else can I say? Doesn't matter what you do to them, they'll always be dry. I'd rather have one that was a little on the fattier side that you had to drain off, rather than having them dry. So now that everything's in there, mix it up. Use your hands. You can buy the fancy, mixer that Princess Auto or wherever, and it'll do all this for you with a crank of a handle. I don't know. I just prefer to get my hands into it. That's why I say they're all handmade. So, as you can see, they'll add in. Spin it around. Make sure you get it all. We still have one grind to go, so even if we don't get it on this one, like get it all evenly mixed in, by the time it's all ground, it'll be all evenly mixed in anyway, and it'll actually be blended a little better. So, alright. Now you don't want to work this too much. Oh, there's a big lump. So I'm going to break it up. Oh, there's another one. Yeah, they say you don't want to work your hamburger too much. Well, in this case, because we're going to double grind it, you can work the snot out of it right now. And the second grind will actually loosen things back up and give you a good mix. So, having said that, we are now ready for the second grinding. So, okay, we'll catch you when the second grind is done. We've got the sausage stuffer with the first load of sausage mix in it. I already got the first casing on. We use natural casings. I don't believe in eating any more plastic than I have to. So when you come to the end, you simply tie it in a knot. Continue feed and tie it in a knot. Yep. Easier said than done at times. Alright, so there it is. You feed it right on to the end. And now before I start, I'll actually make a hole in the end. And that lets the air come out. So, as we start, I'm just going to show you how the process goes as to making links. If you don't want the links, you just want a big coil, then obviously you don't have to twist them off. So, I'm all ready when you are. So I'll just guide this. There it is. There we go. So as you can see, it's just coming out. The air actually escaped through the little pinhole I put into it. And you just want a nice steady flow. This casing is actually, what is it, 32 millimeters. You buy it by size. This is the large one. It makes a really good dinner sausage, something to throw on the barbecue. So there's one. There's two. I'm just measuring here so I can show you how to link them up, if that's what you're going to do. Alright, there's three. So basically what I can do now is pinch them and then twist the middle one. And it will actually make three links. If you want yours a little bigger, obviously you're not going to pinch them off that small. So there it is, and it's just a continual process. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and away you go. So there you go. We'll see you when this one's all done, and I'll show you how to tie them off at the end. Alright, so we're at the end of this link of sausage. I left the last ones that I haven't twisted. It's a very simple process. Pinch it off on either end. And again, you're going to twist the middle one, and then obviously just tie this in an end. And then start all over from the beginning, which means run your casing back on your tube, and then load again, and then go. So typically what we end up doing here is, that's what the parchment paper is for, is we freeze them in links, and then once they're frozen, I'll just drop them apart and put them in bags. It just makes it easier for storage if they're already in a bag, and if you freeze them this way, they all stick together. But if you if you throw them in a bag, I should say, they'll all stick together one to one to one. But if you freeze them this way, they won't stick to the parchment paper. You can cut them apart and put them in bags, and then they'll store in the freezer for as long as you need them. All right, on to, well, I'll show you. I may as well show you how this is done. So you buy your casings. This is actual hog casing, and it comes from, well, I actually got this one at Canadian Tire. Bass Pro has it. If you're in HRM, Pete's Boutique has it. If you're down the valley, Olton's has it down there. They have a couple of different sizes. So anyway, basically, this is hollow. And you gotta, it's the part I don't like, because it never seems to work the first time. So, you gotta find where it opens, and then go from there. Oh, and there's my open. Oh, and they're closed. Alright. So there it is. And come on now. It only seems difficult. Once you've done this as many times as I have, it stays this difficult. However, get rid of that so it's not in the way. Alright, there it is. So you just push it on as far up as you want to go. I always leave it in the bowl because it keeps it wet. You can get metal tubes, or these are the plastic ones. Doesn't matter which you use. What I discovered this evening is if you grease them, they go on really well. If you don't grease them, you're fighting with it all the time. So as you can see, it's not a hard process once it's started. I tend to try and keep it in the center so it all loads up well. Any casing that I don't use, I just throw back in the original package because it's usually coming in a Ziploc bag. And then just throw it back in the freezer. Doesn't necessarily have to be in the freezer, but not knowing when I'm going to make sausage next, I'll throw it in the freezer. There's enough salt in the bag, it would probably be fine in the fridge. Oh. And there's the end. So the thing you've got to remember now is you don't necessarily have to, well, you still have to tie it in a knot because that's at the end. But you don't have to punch a hole in it because now your sausage tube should be full of sausage meat. So if you run this right up to the end, like that is, you don't need to punch it. Anytime you get air, a lot of air coming, just grab your, I always have a darning needle, give it a punch where the air is, let it fill up with the sausage mix, and then just continue on. You just don't want big air bubbles in your sausage. Alright, we'll see you at the end. So now we've got all the sausage is in the casing. There's still sausage meat, still in the tube, in the sausage stuffer. I forgot to mention, if you have a meat grinder and it has a sausage attachment, put the sausage attachment on with your second grind. You'll get all this done in one step as opposed to two. The sausage stuffer is a great tool. It saves a lot of work because standing there while you're grinding is a long process. So anyway, when you clean out all the tubes, and yes, you can stuff a sausage casing with a funnel and your thumb. You just need a bigger funnel to push it all down in. But again, if you don't have casings, just make patties. I've done that before we got this fancy equipment. We just made patties, froze them individually. Every time you wanted a sausage, you took out a patty. Worked great. So anyway, that's all it is to say for sausage making. Have a good night. thanks for watching. Note that the recipe can be used with any wild game, for that matter, pork, beef, whatever you want to add. Sausage is a sausage. Change up the recipe as you can. So, if you like something a little sweeter, do that. And don't forget, like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Have a nice one.